Support for Arkansas Week provided by the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette, the Arkansas Times, and KUAR-FM 89.
Hello again, everyone. Thanks very much for joining us. The first cases in Arkansas were reported a year and 2 weeks ago, and within days of that, the first public school districts were closed. Only a handful at first, but soon classrooms from border to border switched to remote learning. And to one extent or another, so did colleges and universities, public and private. Amid all that, to be certain, was upheaval in the private sector, the economy. But with the end of spring semester in sight, its education will focus on, in this edition, pre-K to grad school. What happened and where from here? Carol Fleming is president of the Arkansas Education Association. Dr. Ivy Pfeffer is Deputy Commissioner of the State Education Department, and Laura Jacobs is Vice Chancellor and Chief of Staff at the University of Arkansas and co-chair of its COVID task force. Thanks to all three of you for being here. Let me begin, if I can, Dr. Pfeffer, with you. Do we know, can we quantify what was lost in the last 12 months?
Thank you, Steve, for having me. And, you know, we've thought a lot about that. I'm not so sure, though, that maybe the question should be not what have we lost or missed, but what do our students need in order to succeed from here? What is it that we need to do to make sure that they're prepared to go to that next level? And I think that's really where we want to drive that conversation with schools, with communities, with families, because we're, as we're getting ready to end this school year, we're already having conversations about where do we go through summer to help keep students engaged in learning, and how do we make sure that we have success now all the way through the end of the year and gearing up for next year.
Well, I mean, forward thinking is always admirable, I suppose, but can we quantify what did our kids K-12 lose ground? How much did we lose?
And I think that as we are able to administer our summative assessments, that's going to give us a lot of really good information. We've heard from districts that have been giving their interim assessments throughout the year. We've heard stories where students are really doing well and gaining ground. We've heard some stories where maybe students are quite where they need to be. We've seen different schools respond in different ways on bringing students back, doing more outreach to help students where they've gotten behind. So I think it's going to be an ongoing effort, and that's why getting that information is going to be so important for us.
Yeah, we'll go to Aspire here in just a second, but Carol Fleming of the AEA, your take.
Well, I would concur with what Dr. Pfeffer has said. We are hearing the same things from our members, and we know that with us getting back to a more regular in-person instruction, that we're going to then see what our students actually need and how we can best meet those needs in moving forward. Looking back,
President Fleming, was the AEA were the classroom teachers were they overly cautious? I recognize hindsight being what it is, but.
And what do you mean that they were overly cautious? Overly cautious as to re-entering the schools, or what?
Yeah, in-person instruction is what I mean. I'm sorry.
Well, I don't know. I would use overly cautious. I would say that the educators were looking at things from a large picture, and they wanted to have their voice heard in regards to how the schools were to reopen, as well as listening to the medical experts, because we felt that that is what was important. When we reopened was based on the information from the medical experts. How we reopened would be based on information from the educational professionals.
All right, let me go to Laura Jacobs at Fayetteville. Ms. Jacobs, obviously the college experience is that's enshrined in American culture, essentially, or certainly in the culture of higher ed. And we gave up a lot in the last year. 12 months. There's no question about that, I suspect. Ms. Jacobs?
Well, I would say I would reinforce that the health and safety of our campus community was at the forefront of every decision we made, big and small, starting a year ago at this time when we made the decision to pivot and to not come back after spring break for the safety and the ongoing concerns about the pandemic. Our students, our faculty, our staff have been nothing short of resilient and flexible throughout this whole endeavor. And certainly the college experience has changed, the classroom experience changed. We were happy that we were able to provide more hybrid classes in the fall. And so even though we were completely remote starting in March and through the summertime, when we came back in August, we had a fair proportion of our courses were available in person or in some sort of a hybrid format. So we know that there were changes and there were sacrifices that students made, but students are resilient and they found a way to maintain some level of college experience.
Well, come fall, I mean, you're already planning the fall semester. Every campus is, every K-12 institution already planning for fall. What can the returning class or classes, what can they expect?
Well, on the University of Arkansas Fayetteville campus and other campuses in the system, our expectation is that we're coming back to as close of a normal fall as possible. We are again, following all the medical guidance, and we will, take our lead from the CDC and the Arkansas Department of Health with regard to masking. There was some announcements that came out last week about the change in distancing for K-12, and we're wondering about the guidance changing in social distancing, if that applies to higher education as well. So that's a game changer. The availability of the vaccine has really created a lot of excitement about our ability to return to more normal operations with about 6,000 of our faculty and staff having already been vaccinated. The availability of vaccine for those who are in 1C category, which includes congregate living, residence halls, Greek housing, students who are between the ages of 16 and 64 with underlying health conditions. That is really going to open up a whole new feeling of safety and comfort for people as we really increase our vaccine numbers.
Well, the trustees now have voted to have essentially told the administration of the university system, you're going to be back in August on campus for everything. Have you been able to assess faculty and staff acceptance of that or reaction to that?
Yeah, I think getting the reaction, it's all very, we were already planning to be back, and we'd already signaled that to various leadership groups and student leaders that our anticipation was back to normal in the fall. The biggest question is really about that distancing and the use of masks. And again, we are going to continue to make decisions for the health and safety of our campus community. I do think that the availability of the vaccine and the increased, numbers of people who are taking the vaccine are, every little bit helps, right? So as we get those percentages up, I think that is just only going to increase people's feelings of safety in returning to the office, returning to the classroom, returning to campus.
Well, Dr. Pfeffer, as Ms. Jacobs just alluded to, and by the way, for the benefit of the audience, we're having to tape this program a few days before airtime. But as we go to press, so to speak, the CDC now says 3 feet as opposed to 6 in most K-12 classroom or elementary situations anyway, is appropriate. How does that change the equation, or does it?
I think from a school district perspective, it's huge. Many of our facilities are, classroom spaces that it was very difficult to accommodate 6-foot distancing. So I think a change to 3 feet will make a big difference in schools. Of course, we're going to have conversations with the Department of Health and look to see whether or not guidance is going to change. I think it's also important, though, to note that in addition to distancing, there are those other measures that are in place. So I think that the 3 feet came with the caveat of still universal mask wearing.
All right, Carol Fleming.
Yes, and I would also agree with that, because we have heard that it is the 1 meter, the 3 feet, and that they would also be including the continuance of the mask wearing. But when we discuss this, it's always important that we have collaborative communication between administration and the educators and the communities when we're making these decisions. And, we here at AEA, we've been having great collaborative conversations with the Arkansas Department of Education regarding how the schools have been reopened, how we are looking forward and moving into the future. And that's what's important, is that we have the voice of the educator involved in all of these conversations.
Well, have the level of those conversations, or the level of collaboration, I should say, has that improved in the past year? Because I know at the outset of this pandemic, both sides weren't altogether certain that it was adequate.
Well, I would not say that. I mean, we may not always agree, but we do have very good conversations, and we always put the students first and the educators at the top of all of our conversations that we have had with the department. We've had very good conversations this entire school year, and many of our conversations resulted in the increased PPE that we saw in our schools, as well as the leave for our educators. And all of that has been through collaborative conversations.
Well, on the matter of PPE, are you reasonably confident now, as you've assessed your members across the state, have their supplies proven in the last several months to be adequate?
The supply has certainly improved over the course of the year. At the beginning of the school year, we saw that there were issues, and some of the school districts were having difficulty in getting the PPE, but through conversations with the Department of Education, they were able to ensure that those school districts did have the necessary PPE that they needed in opening up the schools.
All right, Dr. Pfeffer, can you keep that coming, those supplies?
So yes, we definitely are making sure that we have strategic reserves of the kind of PPE that's needed. We are also all of the federal funds that are going to schools have really kind of opened up an avenue for them to also be able to continue to purchase what they need. And recently, I think some of the updated guidance has clarified that ventilation is definitely an important component in schools to help mitigate the virus. And so you're seeing a lot of school districts that are looking to improve their HVAC systems and provide better ventilation.
Yeah, Ms. Jacobs, it has to be a massive undertaking for, well, any university or college campus. But of course, Fayetteville campus is the largest in the state. Have the supplies proved adequate? What sort of structural or practical changes has the university system implemented?
Well, we really, the supply has really opened up, and I do concur with that. And we've had great partnership with Arkansas Department of Higher Education, which has really made a lot of resources available to higher ed, and through shared purchasing and the ability to order in bulk, which we have done. And we have really, stocked our stores. We have, obviously, when we went into this, made a lot of accommodations within classrooms. We measured to make sure that we were able to distance desks apart by 6 feet. We have installed touchless, soap dispensers and hand sanitizers in every single building. So just a lot of sanitation improvements and enhancements that I don't think will ever go away, frankly. Now that we have them and we are accustomed to using them, I think that will be a wonderful continuation. One of the things, too, we wanted to do at the onset of the fall semester was provide every student with a safety kit. And so we put in a bag for them 2 washable face masks, a few disposable. We gave them all a thermometer so they could monitor their own temperature. We gave them hand sanitizer and wipes, and information about how to use all of those things. And so part of that education process, understanding that the science pointed to those things working, face covering, washing hands, social distancing, and we really wanted to have that PPE to provide to our community and make sure they knew how to use it.
Yeah, not to slight athletics on any other campus, but I'd be remiss if I didn't ask about athletics in the university system itself, starting with the Razorbacks and the other campuses as well.
Well, everyone had to reduce their capacity, and that certainly was a big change, and certainly a big change for us here on the Fayetteville campus, with only being about to seat about a third of the normal capacity inside Donald W. Reynolds Razorback Stadium. And so I know that we have not made any announcements about the fall, and I'm not sure what the changes will be, but it's safe to assume with the increase of the vaccine, if distancing guidelines are changed, we'll take our lead from what the agencies tell us to do. And I know a lot of fans are really looking forward to packing the house, as it were, for a lot of our sporting events.
Right. Is there a timeline on that, Ms. Jacobs?
No, I haven't seen a timeline on any of that. But, as with everything in the pandemic, fluidity and our ability to pivot has been tested at every turn. And so I know that we are ready. I mean, we're ready to increase that. I think sports, including baseball, we've been able to increase our capacity a slight amount. That's an outside activity, certainly. So the parameters are just a little bit different. But I haven't seen a timeline for when any announcements will be made.
Okay, Dr. Pfeffer and Ms. Fleming as well. High school football, obviously, and even at the junior high level, very much a part of the Arkansas experience, the American experience. Are we ready? It's a bit outside, Dr. Pfeffer, it's a bit outside your bailiwick, I understand, but.
Yes. So, so for example, we have the state basketball tournament going on right now. Right. And I think that there's been a really strong partnership between the Department of Health and the Arkansas Activities Association to work with schools and communities to make sure that guidelines can still be followed, but people can still go and enjoy those types of activities. Like Ms. Jacobs said, I think going forward, things are going to change all the time. It is fluid, and but as capacity opens up, and as new guidelines and science points to different ways that we should go about protecting and keeping people safe, I think that if anything, we've learned to adapt much better. And a lot of increased partnerships, groups working together that really probably hadn't done so before.
Yeah, President Fleming, comfortable? Is there a comfort level there?
So it's a little bit ironic that you're asking that question, because I am an official with the Arkansas Activities Association. So I officiate high school and middle school soccer games. And I can tell you the fact that the governor had opened up the vaccination to those that are actually officiating the games, and even now that he's opened it up to more individuals to receive the vaccination, has certainly brought about a sense of relief, as well as for the students. It brings about a sense of normalcy for them to be able to participate in those extracurricular activities. And I can tell you, even for me, to be able to get out there and to officiate a game, it's a great stress reliever, and it's a great way to interact with students and with parents within the community. So our communities are very big in supporting our students in their extracurricular activities, and we know that that's something that allows the child as a whole to grow and develop. And so I'm thankful that we are able to see these activities opening up.
Well, and it's not just athletics, I should add, but it's also like choral music, band,
right.
Other activities as well.
Right, which is why I said all extra, curricular right. activities. I have a sister who is a dance teacher, and now we're having the debate competitions. We're having your dance and theater productions, be it that they are being presented in a new virtual hybrid format, but yet the students are still able to participate and have those experiences that we know are so vital to their socio and psychological, emotional development.
To Dr. Pfeffer and then to Ms. Jacobs, what have we what is the education establishment, K-12 and beyond? Are there lessons that we have already taken from this? Dr. Pfeffer?
Yes. Definitely. I think number one, we have learned the value of in-person interaction. I think that there's been a much greater appreciation for educators. We've developed an understanding of of technology and its role and its importance in education, but also we've developed an understanding of the barriers that are there. And I think we've learned that while it can play an important part, that in-person learning still just cannot be replaced. I think we've grasped how important education really is to all of our students, and especially those who are disadvantaged or those who have special needs or those who are English learners. And so I think that what we take away from that is that there are a lot of things that we learn that we want to continue. We want to continue to be able to enhance those learning experiences, but we know that we have to do that with being able to get kids back in school and connected.
Laura Jacobs.
I would agree with everything that Dr. Pfeffer just said, and that we hope to continue to keep the things that are good from this, the efficiencies created by use of this distance technology. But we do know that in-person, face-to-face education is not something that anyone wants to take for granted. I would add to it that we've always known that mental health is a huge issue and something that we are very serious about. And I think this pandemic has really brought to the fore a lot of additional mental health challenges that, the isolation, the change in everyone's flow and in the normal activities has taken a toll on a number of people, and more people are raising their hand and saying, I need help. And I think that is also, a big takeaway and something that we will continue to provide for people.
Well, that was on my list for Ms. Fleming, in fact, and that was the emotional stress on classroom personnel, not being in the classroom, but having to deliver that, or at least try to deliver that level of instruction remotely.
No, and so Ms. Jacobs actually addressed it very well, because that is something that the pandemic has shown us and has brought to the forefront, is having a larger focus on our mental health for our students as well as for our staff, because it's been difficult for the students not to be able to come to in-person learning, as well as for the educators, because the educators, students, they actually they invigorate us. They actually they motivate us to be the best educators that we can be, so that we can encourage them to be the best individuals that they can be. Just seeing how they grow and develop and increase their independence and their creative thinking is what makes us as educators know that we're doing the best job that we can do. But when we're virtual, we don't see them in person to actually see those subtle signs that we would normally see, that we could say, I need to talk to this child. I need to see what's going on. I need to talk to another individual to see if they're seeing the same signs, so that we can make sure that we're providing the appropriate support for them. And the virtual has provided a discord in that. We've had a little bit of a loss in that connection that we would typically have with the in-person learning.
Well, and in fact, you're losing some connection, a great deal of connection anyway, for we did not mention parents in this context, because financially, emotionally, educationally, it has been devastating on any number of households. Dr. Pfeffer.
It definitely has, and something that comes to mind is thinking about what was valued in terms of homes is this open concept in your home. And all of a sudden, when students were at home and parents were at home and everyone was at home, trying to do learning, trying to have a sense of normalcy, I think it's really changed even how we look at spaces. We're valuing those outside spaces so much now. And so, just the toll even that in opportunities where you're all together, that sometimes created challenges. But I think schools definitely recognizing that as students are coming back, that there does need to be that support for parents. There does need to be clear information, clear guidance as far as what happens. And in terms of educators, we really had a year where everyone was a first-year educator. And then just imagine everyone at the same time being a first-year educator. And I think that when you look at all of those challenges, plus parents put in a role as a teacher in some cases, there were just a lot of things that we have learned. And I think going forward, taking that understanding and that awareness is going to be beneficial for us to just make things better.
Not much time remaining, but I did want to get to this. Is the state going to continue to insist on in-person, on-site Aspire testing?
Yes. We know that for the validity of the testing, we've made very flexible arrangements for parents and for students so that that test can be taken and that we will have those valid, reliable results.
Carol Fleming, flexible enough?
It depends on the educator with whom you're speaking.
Well, you're an educator. We'll start with you.
Well, the fact that I don't have a child this year who is doing the testing, I'm going to leave that to the local decisions.
Well, I mean, there has been some pushback on that. You would acknowledge that from some of your members. Yeah.
There has been pushback, and many are leaving that up to the decision of the parents, because essentially that is a parent decision if they're going to have their child coming to in person or not. Well,
Doctor, let me go back to you for just a few seconds remaining. Is there a major conflict coming up here brewing?
No, I don't think so. So far, we've had very good success with participation with our students, our English learners who are assessing, with our students with disabilities who are taking the alternate assessment. Those are being taken on site. We don't have high stakes testing for students in Arkansas. We value the assessment results for the information that it provides so that we can do better for our students. So I have confidence we're going to work through this very well.
Dr. Pfeffer, Ms. Fleming, Ms. Jacobs, thanks very much for being with us. We're simply out of time. Thank you for being part of the panel. Thank you for joining us, as always. See you next week.
Support for Arkansas Week provided by the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette, the Arkansas Times, and KUAR-FM 89.